Hello, friends and fellow Commander players. Today we're going to talk about the new scary card that got spoiled for Commander Legends. That's right, it is a Black Lotus for your Commander. Jeweled Lotus. It costs 0 mana. You can sacrifice it and add 3 mana of any one color. Remember, it's one color. We'll talk about that later. To cast your Commander. So, is this card broken? Should it be banned? We're going to talk about a lot of things today. That's one of the topics. Is this card broken? When will this card be a problem? Then we'll talk about the price. How much is it costing right now, money-wise, not mana-wise? And then I'll pass it over to you to leave your own thoughts, on whether this was a good presentation. What did you think? Am I right? Am I wrong? You can do that in the comments and whatnot. So let's get started. Is it broken? I will just say right off the bat, no, it's not broken. Okay, and let me tell you why it's not broken. You can only use it to cast your commander. That means once your commander's on the board, it does nothing. So you have to think about what are the situations where casting my commander is a broken thing, right? Turn 1 commander, we're going to look at some of these where if you cast this commander on turn 1, it could be a pretty bad situation for your opponents. But mostly, you can't break it. You have to you cast your commander, it's done. And even if you could recur it, let's say that you could make infinite mana, right? And then use it to cast a commander. What commanders would we be able to cast? Let's take a look. So these are the X commanders. Okay, so let's say I don't know what scenario this is where you make infinite mana with this card. Okay, one of the things that I originally thought when I saw the card is like, oh, you can do the old Bomberman trick where you use Auriok Salvagers and you bring back Black Lotus and just loop it a bunch of times and make infinite mana. But the thing is you can't use the mana that you make from this to activate Auriok Salvager's ability. So you can't make infinite mana that way. And you're going to find that a lot of things that you want to do with it, you can't use the mana to do the thing you want to do. So you can only use it to cast commanders. Now let's pretend there was a way to break it and just go get infinite mana. These are the only options, with the exception of kicker commanders. There might be I think there's a bird commander with kicker that allows you to put a bunch of 1/1 counters on it and then all your birds get swole. If that's a situation, that might be in there too. But these are the X commanders. So there are a couple in here that could be a problem. Mainly Gadwick, right? You would draw your deck, play Thassa's Oracle, and win the game essentially. How would you do that? You would probably use a bunch of artifacts to generate mana, things like Lotus Petal, and then things like Mox Amber, Mox Opal, this kind of stuff. And so you would draw your deck, you would play all your free mana stuff artifacts, and then you would play your Thassa's Oracle and win the game. So if you could, you have one commander here, the Gadwick one, that seems like, okay, that one might be broken. The rest, not so much. Maga is the second one that's kind of like, okay, you could kill a player with that, but you would have to sacrifice Maga to cast it again. Okay, so you'd also have to have a sacrifice outlet, which seems a little bit harder to do, in that loop. And there are so many things you can make infinite mana in Commander pretty easily. So, having these commanders is already something that, people can do. This card by itself is not making infinite mana. It's only making 3 mana, and I mean only, right? I mean, that's a big deal. We'll talk about how big of a deal it is, but I don't think it's enough to say this is broken, this needs to be banned. I do not think it's broken or banned, but bannable. But there are situations where this is very advantageous for the person who has it, and it's in early game situations. Turn 1 is when this really shines, okay, on turn 1. Now, obviously, fast mana is faster, right? That makes sense. So the obvious thing is 3 mana commanders, which you could play for free, right? But I think even better than 3 mana commanders are 4 mana commanders, which are not meant to be played until turn 4, ideally, or if you think about it or whatever, even though they're cast earlier, that's the whole idea, right? You want to get more mana on the board sooner. So 4 mana commanders that are hard to cast, casting those on turn 1 is a big deal, because remember, you get a land drop. So like if you drop a land and then this, you can cast a 4 mana 2 color commander. As long as those 2 colors, yeah, I mean, essentially, yes, unless the colors are like blue, blue, white, white, or something like that. But we'll see a blue-white commander that's like a really bad one for people to have on turn 1. And these commanders, it's not enough to cast a commander that is just a commander, right? Just an average. Like, think about it. Like, what's a normal? You could not cast Atraxa off this because you can only get 1 color, right? But if you could cast Atraxa, like, you need stuff to proliferate. You have a 4/4, which is good, but like, it's not the same thing as these other problematic commanders. The problematic ones are ones that give you a resource advantage, a way to like draw a bunch of cards or make a bunch of mana, something like that. Ones that lock out the game, right? So like when you put it on the board, it's just going to be really difficult to play through, or ones that kill with a combo, right? So something that you play this commander and boom, the game is over. It's been comboed. So we're going to look at some of these commanders. Let's take a look. These ones are problematic commanders because of resources. So Joria, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but this Weatherlight Captain commander creates card advantage, right? When you play your spells, and a lot of Joira decks are like Cheerio decks, right? You play a bunch of 0-cost artifacts, you draw a bunch of cards, and you just keep doing it, and then you kill people with all that kind of stuff I said about the free mana, right? You can play like a Aetherflux Reservoir, or something like that, and then kill people with that. The other one that people seem to be really worried about is Urza, just because, it's an artifact. You make an artifact token, so you get blue right away. So like you play your land, you play this, you sacrifice it, you play Urza, you get a token, you have access to blue, and then you can ideally or feasibly go off from there on turn 1. That seems rough. I think that like the ability to go off with Urza might be a little bit harder than going off with Jora, but maybe I don't see like the lines in my head clear enough to understand that. This one seems really brutal. Crick. So again, remember, because of the Phyrexian mana, you don't have to pay that 3 mana. You could just take 6 life, which means you put a land in play, crack your Jeweled Lotus, and boom, you could play Crick. And then there's those resources I was talking about. Basically playing black spells for free, something like Necropotence, something like that. On turn 1, it just feels bad, right? It feels bad for your opponents. And we'll get to ones that even feel worse than these commanders. So let's talk about some more resource commanders. Najeela. The resource that Najeela creates is creatures, right? So like the idea is you're going to play Najeela on turn 1 with some protection or maybe another warrior. And then on turn 2, you're already attacking with Najeela and a warrior or 2 warriors and making 1/1s. And then it gets way out of hand from there. Anyone who's played against Najeela knows one of my favorite commanders. It just gets out of hand very, very quickly. Seton, the Corrosive Protector. This is another example of a commander you could play on turn 1, and then still have 1 green mana, and you can use it to play a druid, tap, the druid, make, or tap the land, and play a card where like you draw a card for every creature you play. Glimpse of Nature, right? And then you can tap Seton and play another druid, and then tap a druid, play another druid, and as you can see, you're drawing cards, you're tapping, you're gaining all of those resources. So Azusa is another one. Two lands in play. Put it in play on turn 1, you get 3 lands. I'm not so scared of Azusa because one of the bottlenecks of Azusa is cards in hand, and I've seen it so many times with people who misbuild their Azusa deck. They don't have enough lands in their hand to make it pay off, so like they get a couple of they get a couple things and then it just fizzles out. And I think even though you can overcome that, and that's why it's on the list, it's still one of the less scary ones because again, you've used a land, the Lotus. So you're down to 5 cards in hand, maybe 6 because you drew, and then you play the Azusa and you play 2 lands, and then you have 4 cards, and your card quality in hand decreases. But it is a way to get a huge head start in the beginning. These commanders are not about resources, they're about lack of resources. So this is like one of the most, I feel like the most brutal one that you can do is the Grand Arbiter Augustine. Your turn 1, just imagine someone opens the table with Island, Lotus, Grand Arbiter, boom, and then it's like, nobody can play anything on turn 1, and they have to wait until turn 2. And I think at that point it's like, if I sat down and that happened at a table, I would probably just say, okay, you win, next game, because I don't want to do that. I don't even want to play this against this on turn 4. I don't want to play against that turn 1. Another one of these lock commanders is Malrin of the Mornsong. This is one that has been really hot this season with Commander Legends, and that is because of Opposition Agent, which was just spoiled yesterday or the day before. And Opposition Agent says that when your opponents search their libraries, you take control of their searching. I don't know how to put it, but basically you're searching the deck for them, and then you get to play those cards instead of them. So it's not a fun card, and it's not fun with Opposition Agent. But with the new Jeweled Lotus, you could do this on turn 1, because you could play Jeweled Lotus, play your Malrin the Mornsong, and then play a Swamp, Dark Ritual, play your Opposition Agent, pass the turn. Everybody maybe continues playing Magic. I doubt it. But another one of those moments where everyone just shuts off I think even a Malrin on turn 1 is probably feels bad. And so I think most people will quit playing the game at that point. The next one is a little bit less oppressive. Gaddock Teague. No one likes playing against a Gaddock Teague. It's super annoying, but it's annoying in the later turns, really. Less annoying in the early turns, because not a lot of people are casting 4-mana spells on turn 1. Not a lot of people are casting X spells on turn 1, unless you have a Green Sun Zenith or something. And so it's annoying, right? I think the big problem with casting Gaddock Teague on turn 1 is that you'll have things to protect him in the subsequent turns, where people won't really have the ability to turn it off, and then it'll get harder and harder to deal with. And so this is a lock commander. I put it on here because some people seem to be worried about it, but it is less oppressive than Malrin and less oppressive than Grand Arbiter, which definitely 2 commanders I don't want to play against on turn 1. Let's look at the next ones. These are the combo commanders. So they vary in doability, right? So Gyruda is one of those commanders that you have to really build your deck well to make it go off on turn 1. But again, if you bring back our friend Dark Ritual and now our friend Jeweled Lotus, turn 1 land, swamp, make a Dark Ritual, play your Jeweled Lotus, crack it, play Gyruda, hopefully put your whole everyone's graveyard into everyone's library into their graveyard and win the game. And then you can shuffle up and play a different game with a different deck. Same thing with Godo. You ramp out a Godo. This is a 6-mana card, but it's going to be basically 3 mana with Jeweled Lotus. You go get a Helm of the Host, and then you go to town. So obviously on turn 1, there's not be a lot of blockers or anything like that, so you get to just, have fun there. So the other one this is a cool one I saw on Twitter. Appreciate the person who sent this in. They said with Emery, you can basically play the Jeweled Lotus and then play it from the graveyard. And then it says there's a Mirren Spy or something that says untap a creature every time an artifact comes in play. So then you untap Emery. So basically you do make that infinite mana with the Jeweled Lotus, and then you sacrifice Emery and then cast Emery again, mill yourself, and you basically mill your whole deck this way. You need a sacrifice outlet, but with the sacrifice outlet, you can sacrifice Emery over and over again and then mill your library. And so that's a combo that you can do. So with these in mind, okay, these are when it's most problematic. again, we only went through, I think it was like 12 commanders, where I really think, okay, there's going to be some problems here on turn one. Later in the game, of course, as the farther you get away from turn one with these commanders, the less of a problem they become, right? So the thing I want to talk about now is, where does this card rank? Okay, like I said, it's not broken, okay, in my opinion. And what I've been hearing is that it's bad. So, like, some people have gone one extreme saying it's broken, it needs to be banned. The other people, have gone this other extreme where it's like, it's pretty bad. It's a medium card. It's not very good, I don't think I agree with either side here. And I try to figure out, like, how can I map this out in a way to place this? How do I know how powerful this card is? Okay. Through some crude thinking, again, this card was only spoiled maybe an hour ago, 2 hours ago. And so really, I haven't put too much thought into this, but I mapped out these different cards on where I feel they would be on a power level in Commander on like mana efficiency, right? And so obviously Black Lotus at the top, and I have the Moxen in the 8th slot. Now, of course, you can't play Black Lotus or the Moxen in Commander, but I wanted to put them there. Well, you can't play Moxen in Commander yet, but, now that we've got a Jeweled Lotus, we might get some Moxen, some Commander Moxen in Commander Legends 2 or something like that. Whatever Wizards wants to sell, a truckload of product, maybe we'll see those. Okay, so I made this map, and you may not agree with the map, okay? Not everyone's going to agree. I guarantee most people are not going to agree, because we all kind of have a relative power level, and I looked at people who I really respect and their ideas of where the power level falls. I, applied it against my own experience, and I came up with this. Some people rank things higher. This is my rank for efficiency. I will say that some of these cards get better over time in a game, right? So, like, if you're going to play 10 turns or 15 turns versus 5 turns, then the efficiency or the value of these cards play different. Having a creature is sometimes better than not having a creature. So Land of Realms would be higher in some situations than not. So really, this is not about the map. This is about just getting a relative power level of the Jeweled Lotus. Where does it fit in these other well-known cards? So the way I did it is I just moved it up the map. Cultivate is the lowest, so I said, is Jeweled Lotus better than Cultivate? I think so. It makes 3 mana on turn 1. Cultivate, you have to wait until you have 3 mana to get an extra mana that comes in play tapped. Okay. Rampant Growth, same thing. You have to have 2 mana to get another mana, and the mana doesn't come in play untapped. I mean, if you talk about something like Nature's Lore, yeah, that's going to go above Rampant Growth because it comes in play untapped. Or, I think it's Nature's Lore that comes in play untapped. I hope I'm right there. So then you have Mox Amber, which you need your commander to activate. So you would have already had to pay the cost of the commander. It's kind of like a better card to, rather than generating mana to cast a commander or cast something, it's better like to have had the commander or something legendary and then use the mana to protect it or something like that. So Mox Amber loses for 2 reasons. Number 1, you kind of have to have this material first, and then it only makes 1 mana. So even though it sticks around, it only makes 1. And there is some tension between that, right? Something that sticks around, again, in the long run is going to be better than something that makes 3 mana up front, but there's some push and pull. I think everyone would agree that something that makes 3 mana right now is better than something that makes 1 mana over many turns, right? But the returns are diminishing, right? After 5 turns or whatever, then the Lotus, the Mox Amber maybe made 5 mana and this only made 3. So again, we have to kind of like intellectually like parse that flexibility there and say, hey, somewhere in between is where we find the truth. And so as we move on, Mox Amber Dark Ritual makes 3 mana, okay, like Jeweled Lotus, but costs a mana. So in my opinion, Jeweled Lotus is higher than that, okay? And then we have number 6, which is Land of Elf, which makes a mana but costs a mana. Lotus Petal makes a mana, does not cost a mana but goes away. Lotus Petal is starting to get very close to Jeweled Lotus, And in some situations, it's better because Jeweled Lotus can only be used for commander. So if you need to cast something other than a commander, Lotus Petal's better. But the fact that Jeweled Lotus makes 3 mana to cast a commander pushes it into the better realm, right? And so, like, I feel like as we start getting into this, like, level 6, 7, if we have to start breaking things into, like, 6.5, maybe 6.75, because Lotus Petal may be better than Llanowar Elves. It's probably like a 6.5. Lotus Petal is not better than Chrome Mox, though, because Chrome Mox is basically a Llanowar Elves that makes 1 mana for free, in my opinion. And so making 1 mana for free is probably over time, not a bunch of time, but over a short amount of time is probably better than making 3 mana only for your commander for 1. So in my placement would be, in case you haven't figured it out by now, my placement would be in the 6.5, or I would say in between 6 and 7, in that range, right? In between 6 and 7. It could be anywhere in between there. You could stick those cards, you could say it's a 6.5, you could say it's a 7.2, or you could say maybe Chrome Mox is a 6, or, but I put it up, it's above average. A lot of times, the reason I say that too is a lot of times when you're casting your commander, you're wanting to cast your commander. It doesn't matter. Let me put it this way. It doesn't matter if you use the 3 mana to cast your commander and then you'll still have other mana open, is the interesting thing, right? Because, like, let's say on turn 1, of course, you're casting a 3 mana commander, but then you have 1 mana from your land. Or you're casting a 4 mana commander, right? But, like, on turn 4, like, maybe you're casting your 3 mana commander and then you have 4 mana. So you'll have that 4 mana to use as the turns progress. You can use that mana for something else, and essentially it becomes a Black Lotus if you were going to cast your commander that turn. So any turn that you're going to cast your commander and then you want to do something else, that essentially is a Black Lotus, because it doesn't matter if you spend the 3 mana on the commander or something else, even though you have to spend it on the commander, it's producing 3 extra mana. And so that's my defense there. I think it falls between a 6 and a 7 in the power rating. I think it's a good card, and I don't think it's mediocre or lackluster. I agree that it probably won't be in every deck, but it will definitely be in the decks that we talked about there. And I think it will be in a lot of decks, a lot more decks than like Mox Amber, right? A lot more decks than Lotus Petal, And so there's that. All right, let's move on to pricing. Okay, Card Kingdom started at $30. You can see in the Magic Finance threads all these people posting, I bought them for $30, now they're going crazy. And now Card Kingdom is at $159.99. Okay, wow, $159.99. That's crazy. Started at 30, they just kept selling them. People are hyped about this card. Okay, eBay, they go from like $120 in Canada to $199. They're listed for that. And then check out this crazy listing. $1,000 for a foil Jeweled Lotus. Wow. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if that's real, but it is a sold listing. That means it's sold. So the hype is very, very big on this. Where do I think it will fall? Let's see what some other people said. Dan Bach is one of the biggest eBay sellers out there. He said $5 to $10 for this card. $5 to $10. I disagree, but that's what he said. And he could be right. He could be right. Okay. Charlie is a known Magic financier. I like this guy. He's a smart guy. He said, the reason I asked him about it was because he said, hey, if anyone's going to buy it for $150, talk to me. I'm going to sell them to you for much cheaper. So he started selling them for $75. Okay, and so they're all sold. He's sold out now. So sold out at $75. We know at least right now that these cards are worth over $75 because they're selling out at $75. They're selling out at $150. We know right now the price is high. Where will it settle? It can't stay that high. Okay, and I'll talk about why here. I think it'll settle between $36 and $83. So it's a moving floor and ceiling. I like to call it moving. Again, remember our ranking. Okay, this is where the ranking helps for pricing, because if we look at the power level, it's about the power level of a Chrome Mox, or maybe less a little bit, right? And so I don't think it will be lower than a Chrome Mox because it is a mythic from this set. It is a commander card which has a lot of drive and demand, and you know, that it just won't be lower than a Chrome Mox because of where I put on the ranking and because of all the demand and the fact that it's a mythic in this set. Where's the ceiling? I think it could go as high as a Mana Crypt, okay? Because I think people think of it like a Mana Crypt. The public opinion, many people think of it like a Mana Crypt. I don't think it's as powerful as a Mana Crypt, as you saw in my ranking. But what I think does not matter. It does not matter because what matters is what people who are buying the card thinks, okay? In the middle, like, where is it going to fall between these two? Well, that depends on stuff, okay? And I put a couple of things in the middle to talk about why I think it might fall somewhere, in the middle. One of them is the most opened set. I said, I think that Commander Legends, and this is not because of Jeweled Lotus. I said this many, many times to people in my inner circle. I think that Commander Legends will be probably the best-selling Magic set ever. And that's a big claim with COVID, okay? I don't know if they're even going to print enough to make it the biggest Magic selling set ever, right? Can they actually print enough? Can they produce enough in the COVID times to actually sell this more than the most sold set than Dominaria? I think Dominaria is the most sold set or something like that. Can they do it? If they could, it would happen, okay? So let me put that caveat. If enough can be produced, okay, it will sell to the highest degree. The reason why is because this is a Commander booster box set, that the first truly Commander booster box set aimed at the Commander audience, and that is the biggest market in Magic. That is the biggest audience. So the demand for it is going to be very high. Okay, so if they can produce enough, that is going to affect the price lower. It's red because it's going to negatively affect the price. So instead of $83 or, above that, again, a moving floor and ceiling. Okay, I want to make this clear because Chrome Mox and Mana Crypt were just reprinted. Before the reprints, it was like $60 and $150, right? And so, like, if this had been previewed, before Double Masters, right, then the floor and ceiling would have been, $60 and $150. But since it's got a reprint and the pressure has pushed those cards down, the floor is now $36 and $83. So as these go up, I think the floor and ceiling of Jeweled Lotus will go up with them. Okay. COVID distribution issues and production issues. We know that Wizards has been having a hard time printing sets in these times and getting them out. That might kill my claim that, hey, it's going to be the most bought set, the most open set, because they might not just be able, they just might not be able to make it that much right now at that pace. If they do that, the price will go up. Okay, I'm going to take a little drink. Again, price will go up if there's issues with distribution and production, because people want the product, they can't get it. Scarcity, supply, and demand, right? Low supply, high demand, scarcity, price will go up. Public opinion, another thing, like I said, people might look at it like Mana Crypt instead of like, closer to Chrome Mox, and they will, put their money where their mouth is. They'll say, you know what, I think that's worth $100. I'm going to buy it. It would not surprise me to see this card continue to be $100 or higher through the release of the set. That wouldn't surprise me. I'm talking about where the price might settle. Again, this has been spoiled a couple hours ago, so like, we don't know. We don't know. We have no idea what's going to happen. It's a strange world that we live in. But I wanted to give you some things to think about. I hope that this presentation on the Jeweled Lotus has given you at least things to think about. Maybe, filled out your own thinking a little bit about the card. And if it has, let me know what you think. It's your turn. Put it in the comments, reply on Twitter, shoot me a message in my Discord. Let's talk about it. I'd like to hear what you think. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you next time.